Welcome to the Financial Armor Show. My name is Brad Cooper, the president of Cooper Financial Investments. Welcome to our show. And as always, welcome Tony Shore is our wonderful, amazing co-host. How are you doing today, Tony?
Doing good.
Tone.
Yeah,
Tone
Tone.
Loc, I'm thinking
Yeah,
of.
actually, I had a boss. One of my first bosses, when I first moved to California, was doing radio promotions for a Christian rock label called Frontline Records. My
Right.
boss there, great guy, Mike. I think it was him who called me Tone Loc. He's the first person to ever call me that. That
So
was
I'm
in
the
the late
second person.
That was the late 80s. A few people in between, but yes, I got that nickname from him, so that's pretty funny. I'm doing great. How have you been? I know this is a busy time of year for financial planners, isn't it?
It is, Tony, but I love it. From now on through the holidays, we'll be extremely busy. Then we'll have maybe a week or two break. And then going into January, the first quarter or two will be busy as well. But love it. Get a chance to meet a lot of new people. But even more importantly, we're a relationship type company and we get to sit down with our clients and do updates and reviews and revisit with them, not only on financial aspects, but more importantly, family and what's going
Yeah.
on in their lives. And that's what's enjoyable to me. Someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, Tony, Brad, what do you most enjoy about where you're at now? And why aren't you retired? I've been doing this for 31 years. I know it
Well,
doesn't look like it.
you're
I
about
started
20 or 30 years away from retirement. You're not yet old enough to be retired,
You're
first of
right.
all.
Well, thank you for that. But secondly, this is not work. Just give me a cup of coffee and, sit down and visit. And that's why I enjoy the most. And we're in such a changing world, economy, technology. We have probably some of the sharpest young folks that work with us, from advisors to admin that I ever had in my 31-year career. And seeing them embrace technology and what the future is about just gives me a new motivation. And that's why I enjoy the most. So a lot of people ask me, Brad, you going to retire? No. The only way health would have to force me out. But will I slow down? Of course. But I love what I do. And there's so many changes. I had the privilege this morning, Tony, of talking to a 20-year-old college student who is majoring in finance and
Oh,
accounting. And he was wanting to visit with me and pick my brain on the financial industry and future internships. And wow, it was so great to just visit with him and see how the upcoming generation is. And very sharp young man, but he did his research, which I was very impressed. He knew exactly what we did as a firm. And he said, Brad, I realized through all my research and studies, you're a little bit different than the rest of
oh,
your industry. And he mentioned
that's
holistic
great.
financial planning. Is this correct, Brad? You're dealing with every risk out there
Yeah.
from market and inflation risk, which we're going to talk about risk today,
Yeah.
and taxes and long term care, estate planning, the list goes on. So he said, wow, just the educational aspect and doing what others aren't is very appealing to me. So that was very refreshing to hear that from a young man who could be my son in that case.
Well, you've got some great staff. Some of them are young. I mean, Jose has filled in on the show, and he's young, at least lot younger than me. But wow, I'm impressed with him, and he's really come a long way. I mean, I know you've kind of taken him under your wing, and he is so knowledgeable and does a great job.
Thank you for that because Jose's been with me for a couple years. He came
Yeah.
over from Morgan Stanley, probably one of the sharpest young men that I've met, and just getting better and better. His background is economics. He's got a degree from ASU, and very thankful for him. And someone you're going to meet in the near future who's been with me for about a year, who is transitioning into an advisor, is Tyler Cote.
Oh
And
yeah.
just another upcoming superstar who's so intelligent, so up to speed, not only in the financial arena, but communication, because in today's world, it's hard to find someone who is intelligent, who's brilliant when it comes to our industry, but also can talk and communicate
Right.
and bring
That's a
that
key.
down.
Yeah.
It is. And, I heard this term many years ago, Tony. We like to bring Wall Street down to Main Street.
Yeah.
And, my upbringing wasn't like yours. You come from, billions and billions of dollars in your family.
I grew up with a very poor farm family. Yeah.
Well, that makes two of us. So we do have that in common. But, to learn this industry and see that and have that part of our team to further educate and make an impact. And at the end of every day, I go home, and as a lot of things are going through my mind, I realize people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how much money you have, whether you have a couple 100,000 to your name or if you have 100 million to your name. Most people don't know what they don't know. And that's the impact we have at Cooper Financial, regardless of your net worth, on what we do, which makes me very thankful and very proud of our team, which is going to be around for the next 50 to 100 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I know that you work hard at succession planning.
yes,
You've built up a great team, and I have no doubt that it is the greatest group of people that you've worked with in your career, and you've been doing this a long time.
right.
Nowadays it's so hard to find the right people and the right
It
employees
is.
and make a good fit that has a family feel that you trust. Entrust to your clients after in 20 or 30 years when you retire, then you trust people to take over the company, and you have a good succession plan there. Your family and the coworkers, the team there is great. I really enjoy working with everyone there, and I think it's
Right.
great. Now, today, Brad, we're talking about the top financial concerns facing today's retirees or near retirees, those planning
Right.
for retirement or already in retirement. And there are a number of them. We've talked about a couple of these on some past shows. They've come up.
Right.
But let's talk about, it's good to revisit this because sometimes things change. Over the years, this list has probably changed, but we're looking at what are the top concerns right now that you see facing today's retirees or near retirees?
That's a good question because, the concerns that we're going to be talking about today, it seems like we've been talking about those for 15 to 20 years. There
Yeah.
are some new ones, of course, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of ones that have not changed. So,
Yeah.
you know, we're basically just trying to be more proactive and prepare, people, whether they're approaching retirement 5, 10 years out, or maybe in retirement. The first and probably the biggest conversation we've been having. And one of our money managers, Keith Gango, was down a couple weeks ago and spoke to all of our clients and friends of theirs who came in, which was an amazing event. And that was a big topic. I just gassed up before I came into the office this morning. And it's crazy how expensive things still are. My
Oh,
wife goes to the grocery store. She dragged me with her last time, which
uh-oh.
open disclosure, hopefully she's not listening. I hate going to the grocery store. I hate it, especially when you go up and there's no full service checkout. So you have to self-service
Yep.
yourself. And then you get a bill for $300, $400, which 5 to 10 years ago would have been half of that. So that's
Oh,
where we notice it too,
yeah.
as well.
Not even 10. I would say 5 years ago. It's probably
Yes,
doubled in the last 5 years from what I've seen. I mean, it feels that way anyway, and it seems like that. I know some things have. But yeah, you go to the gas station, you go to the grocery store, and you can really feel it, can't you?
you can. It's so, that brings up a question I get often is, well, Brad, what's the solutions, to that? Should I wait and longer before I retire? Or maybe I am retired. A question I'm getting is, will my money outlive me? Which we're going to talk a little bit more in detail as far as income. But, those are very important questions because a lot of clients nationwide are on a fixed income.
Yeah.
And that could mean various, things as far as Social
Well,
Security, pension.
well, no matter how much or how little you have entering into retirement, you're on a fixed income. I
You're
mean,
right.
if you've stopped earning money now, if you have enough, hopefully the interest will count as income, and so maybe you're in a better situation there. But other than that, you don't have paychecks coming in anymore, so you do
You're
have to
right.
rely and be careful with your investments. So we're talking about inflation. That's the big one. That can really eat away at your money. It is a concern that people have, especially after that spike we saw
Right.
earlier this year or a couple of years ago with inflation. So what can you do about inflation? What can you do for that?
Well, a lot of folks, Tony, they think, well, I need to take more risk. I need to take high risk with my investing. Let's just move all
Mm.
my money that I have to aggressive stocks. That is not the solution. Yes, let's take a look at your portfolio, but we as fiduciaries, we take risk very serious.
Yep.
And yes, the market has been good. We believe it's going to continue to be good the next several years, but what protections do you have when we do have a dip and it drops down 15, 20% negative? We want to make sure that doesn't impact your retirement nest egg and you have to work another 5 years because of that. So there are strategies, Tony, out there that, have averaged much more than inflation. One thing I'll add to this too is a lot of people who are glued in front of the TV every day. It just reminds me a few
Yep.
weeks ago when I was up in Minnesota meeting with all of our money managers and analysts, the advice they give us every year to share with us advisors, and they tell us to share this with our clients, is turn off the TVs because their goal, their moneymaker is to paint a big gloom and doom picture. So, with that
Yep.
said, you do have to be careful, but I see a lot of people are moving a lot of money to the bank. Just
Mhm.
here a couple weeks ago, had a person come in and I was, gathering information. They had $725,000 in a checking account, earning
What?
less than 1%.
I had talked to Brett. I had talked to an advisor recently who told me they had somebody to come in who had $500,000 in a bank savings account earning almost no interest. And I thought that's the most I had heard of
No.
somebody having in a bank account with little to no interest being earned. Over $700,000 in a
Yes.
checking account. What could you possibly need? You're never going to write a check out for
No.
$700,000 or even
And
$500,000,
And
right?
two, even if they have the argument, well, it's safe. Well, no, it's not. It's way over the Federal Reserve limit of $250,000.
It's not
So
even insured. If the bank
no,
if the bank would fail, your money is only insured. If FDIC insurance is only 250.
right,
I mean, and there's some insurance companies that are insured for more than that, depending on what state they're in. So that is, it's
right.
usually 250 or 300 there too. So you've got to have a balance. That is, just think about the interest and the compounding interest that they're giving up, and they're not keeping up with inflation, right?
Exactly. And that's the key, Tony. And
Yeah,
I don't want to get into specific portfolios, but
sure.
just to let our listeners know, there are very, very, very safe portfolios where the market would have to decrease more than 25% to lose any money, where you could get almost, not quite a double digit return. But there are things out there. Is it good to have a little bit of money at the bank? Yes.
Yeah,
But do not keep large amounts at the bank. So when you're looking at a complete financial plan that's balanced and risk, adverse, you want to make sure that you don't keep a lot of money in accounts that's earning in today's world less than 5%, or you're not keeping
yeah.
up with inflation.
Well, yeah, and savings and checking accounts rarely are even making that. Usually,
Exactly.
it's 1 or less percent that they're earning. So, and inflation is, as we know, it's around 3 to 4% right
Right.
now. Well, yeah, that's so for inflation, that makes sense. Make sure you have balance, make sure you have some in growth. You do want some money in the bank. We talk about
Yes,
emergency funds, but you can have too much too much in any one bucket is a problem then, isn't it?
so true.
Yeah.
So another risk, Tony, that we've talked about in the past, which I think it's probably one of the top, if not number one, number two risk out there that people bring up on a daily basis with me. And I agree. I've lived it. I've experienced not only with clients, but with parents, in-laws. It's healthcare,
Yeah.
future unforeseen healthcare cost. According to Fidelity, a 65-year-old couple retiring today may need $300,000 just to cover healthcare costs in their
In re-
retirement.
in their
And
retirement. Yeah.
and let me just make this clear. That does not include in-home health care, assisted living care, or nursing homes.
Wow.
$300,000. And I've read other studies where a high percentage of your Social Security will go toward healthcare costs if you're not prepared for this.
Sure.
And there are solutions. So just to let you know, Medicare is great, but it does not cover everything.
And there's still costs with Medicare. There's still
There is.
premiums, co-payments, and deductibles. So, and then you might have to pay for supplemental or get an advantage plan because Medicare doesn't cover long-term care, um, vision, hearing, and dental, which are three things that
Exactly.
every senior is going to need at some point, right?
Right. And, so my biggest advice is review your Medicare options annually. Now,
Mm.
speaking of that, we're going into Medicare season, right?
Yeah.
And this is a prime time. If you go back to a few podcast recordings we've done in the past, you'll listen to a recording that all, four of us did, or actually three of us, with our Medicare specialist, which was a lot of great information. But if you want a review or a second opinion, which I would encourage you, my mom's going through this as well. They just increased the company, which I won't mention their name, big company, by the way, increased her cost by 125% just in the last year.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
other options that will save her. And she's on a very, very fixed income.
Yeah, I've heard that this annual enrollment period, it's important to get what you have reviewed because there are a lot of changes and the costs are going up. And you have a Medicare specialist right there that you can our listeners can meet with. I would schedule that appointment now,
Now,
sooner rather than later. Get it done because that is so important. So, besides meeting with your Medicare specialist, what can people do? I mean, what are some of the options? I know that they will talk to them about these, but maybe look for a better advantage plan or different types of insurance.
absolutely. Especially with Medicare, it'd be the best, half hour you spend on the phone in person to find out your options because every year Medicare is changing. There's
Yep.
normally better options out there. One thing I will add though is make sure you're asking the right questions, especially if you're not working with one of our Medicare specialists. There's a lot of good ones out there, but there's a lot of bad ones. And fortunately, unfortunately, there's a lot of hospitals just here in Arizona, that will not take Medicare or some of the supplements. So you want to make sure the hospitals that you go to or may go to in the future, doctors that you may go to now or may want to go to in the future are covered under that plan. So that's where a Medicare specialist comes into play. And our Medicare specialist, I would put up against any in the United States as far as education and giving you the options, not only with doctors and healthcare facilities, but also pharmaceutical, you know, prescriptions, which, we could spend a whole day on that topic and how
Yeah.
crazy expensive those are. And those could bankrupt you if you don't have the right program or right plan in place. So
Yeah.
that, and then also some other solutions, which we talked a little bit in the past, but we offer some strategies that help pay for in-home healthcare, that help pay for assisted living care, long-term care needs that are non-traditional, I call them. They're not long-term care policies. If you've never heard of these or not familiar, you need to call our office because we're helping and making a huge impact with our clients and people that as they come in our office in that topic, which we'll spend a little bit more time in a future show on that topic again, Tony.
Sure.
But that's a big area to pay attention to when it comes to financial planning and retirement planning.
Yeah, especially get that healthcare coverage that you need based on your personal situations. What medications are you going to need? What doctors and
Right.
hospitals do you work with? I'm glad you pointed that out. Now, healthcare is a biggie. So, inflation in healthcare. What's another one? I bet I can guess the next one, but what is it?
Let's see. We're thinking the same probably. Market volatility. You
Yep.
know,
Yep,
you
the
know.
market goes down like it did this past April, or
Oh my
even
goodness.
about a week ago when it dropped after the possible new China tariffs were announced. Then the market dropped again. Now it's back up. You just can't. People get emotional and are concerned about volatility in the market with their
Right.
retirement money, aren't they?
They are, and two guarantees. Yes, I say the word guarantee that I can make about the stock market. It will
Yeah,
go up. It will go down.
we know that over the past
So
100 years, it's went up and
yes.
down.
So what?
Luckily, over it's hit record highs, but never record lows, at least in
Yes.
the past 100 years. So that's good.
Right. So, with that said, you need to have a good balance plan and understand risk. And that's one area as a fiduciary, Cooper Financial Investments, we take risk very serious and we're being proactive. We're preparing our clients in good times. Praise the Lord. The market's going up, everyone's making money. But we're going to have a few dips in the market in the years to come. When that happens, you want to make sure that overall doesn't devastate your portfolio and you're still going to be okay.
Yeah.
So that's the areas. And there's a lot of different strategies, that are liquid. Some are short term, some are longer term that have guarantees of principal. And average returns have been very, very good the
Well,
last 20 years.
boy, yeah. Even the last couple of years. Questions people have: how much risk is too much? Should I move everything to cash? People panic and think they should do that. What happens if we have a recession? And I think they get the sky is falling. This panic. All these panic questions come from watching TV, like you said earlier. So, what can our listeners out there do about it?
Good question. And I'll bring this back to the phone call I had this morning with a 20-year-old college student. If you go to cooperfinancial.com
Hmm.
or financialarmorshow.com, in the upper right hand corner, you can click on risk score and answering 11 quick questions, which may take you 2 minutes if you're a slow reader like me. You're going to get a score. I'll just here the average score I see from our clients is around 45 to 50. His score was 67. So I'm going to go use his score. He's much younger.
Hmm.
So using 67, just to keep it simple, he said, what does that mean, Brad? Oh, about 67. Let's call it 70% of your money because you're young. You can put in the market and take risk. But the other 30%, you want to have more, be a little bit more conservative to moderate. You want to have liquidity. You want to have an emergency fund. But let's go back to the example of 50. If 50% of your money is guaranteed, if that's your score, 50, you're taking a little bit of risk and the market takes a dip, you're going to maybe lose a little bit of money that's in the market, but the guaranteed money you're not going to lose.
Right. Yeah. And when you say guaranteed, there are a lot of options out there and vehicles where you have principal protection
Right.
or downside protection. And that's what we're talking about. But, yeah, and the trick is, hey, how can I get downside protection or 100% principal protection guaranteed, but yet still get as much upside as possible? Well, you're going to sacrifice some upside if it's not all at risk.
Right.
So you'll get some though, and hopefully that's what you help people do is look at their situation and say, okay, let's maximize this. What's the best fit for you to get the best returns, right?
Yes, and that's what's exciting. And even some of our brokerage portfolios that are professionally managed by our money managers called buffered portfolios, which we talked about them in the past, have
Yeah.
a little bit of downside protection, anywhere from 12 to 20%, which means that the market would have to drop more than 15% if that's your buffer to lose a penny. But if the market goes up 5%, 10%, 15%, you get those gains. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of strategies out there that are not being offered to the majority of Americans.
Yeah.
And that's what I see as I travel the country. So, but well, two more real quick, Tony, as we're running out of time. Wow, time flies
Yeah.
when you're having fun, right? You
Yep.
know, and I'll just touch on these briefly. Actually, one more is estate planning.
Yes.
And we've talked about that before in the past. I'm going to have one of our strategic partner attorneys come on again and talk again about the importance. There's wills, there's trust, depending on what your goals. The number one goal is keep it out of probate. Number two, you have worked so hard your entire life, whatever your wishes are, whatever your desires are, let's make sure that transfers to your beneficiaries, to your family, to your estate in a professional way that keeps the government's hands off that, and preferably the IRS.
Yeah, and doesn't leave your heirs in a mess. Make sure it's organized and prepared ahead of time so they aren't left with a headache, right?
That's right. So that's going to be a future show again, just talking about the impact of estate planning, some
Yeah.
updates in the laws and estate tax exemptions. And last but not least is outliving your money. As
Yeah.
Americans, with healthcare advancements, we're living longer. So at Cooper Financial, and I shared this morning too, we take pride in making sure as we're doing retirement income planning, we want to make sure that whether the husband, if you're married, or the wife dies first, the other surviving spouse, whether they live to age 90 or 100 or 150, they're never going to run out of money.
Right.
And that's what's important to us. There's a study done several years ago. I forget it's either Fidelity or Vanguard, I believe it was. But basically, the study said that nationwide, about 75% of widows end up in poverty.
Really?
And we're going to talk more about that in the weeks to come, Tony, because that's going to be even more of a concern. Statistics
Yeah.
say that husbands, if you're married, will die before the wives, and the
Yes.
wives may live another 7 to 8 years beyond that. So we're being very proactive. We're going into 2026 with many speaking engagements and training and education for our clients and the public on this, on how to prepare yourself, whether you're a wife or a husband, a divorcee, it doesn't matter. That's something we're taking head on in addition to healthcare.
Yeah, I think that's great, Brad, and that's so important. You don't want to leave your spouse in a bad situation either. So, how you
No,
file for Social Security can impact that. And again, each of these areas will do shows where we really hone in on each one of these areas. But these are the top concerns. You went over inflation, healthcare costs, market volatility, estate planning, and
right.
outliving your savings. And if you want a good plan that in place to deal with these so you don't have to worry about them, just I encourage you, pick up the phone, give Brad and his team there at Cooper Financial a call. There's a no charge, no obligation consultation, or see if you can get a reservation at a no charge one of your seminars. You can sign up for those online. They do fill up fast. So,
Right.
Brad, how can our listeners out there and viewers do that?
Absolutely, Tony. And please give us any feedback or any more topics that we discussed. Hey, I'd like to know more about that on future shows. And of course, like Tony said, whether it's me or any of our strategic partners, we do not charge for the initial consultation. Bring your questions and concerns in, we'll address those. Or you can ask them online at financialarmorshow.com. Visit financialarmorshow.com, ask your question, or you can call, pick up the phone, 888-390-5277. Again, that's toll free, 888-390-5277. Ask those questions. Our staff, myself loves answering those questions and empowering you with the knowledge and wisdom which you deserve.
All right. Sounds great, Brad. And listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of the Financial Armor Show with our host, Brad Cooper.
Thank you, Tony.